Buckle up, Buttercup. We're about to get into some funky stuff today. Today we're going to be getting into the OGL, the big thing that everybody is talking about right now with D&D and Hasbro and D&D Beyond and all of that and like everything that's going on. So first off, if you don't know what the OGL is, it's cool. Neither did I. It's fine. It stands for Open Game License, which basically is a 340-page document. To be fair, about two pages of that is the actual OGL. The rest of it is what they call the SRD, or the System Reference Document, which is all of like the core rules, the core classes, and all of their stats and everything. So 2 pages worth of that is actually the thing that's causing all the big stir right now. Open Game License came out in 2001 from Hasbro, basically saying that if you were to create content, this is all the royalty-free stuff in which you could use that we can't get you for. So a lot of the monsters, a lot of the classes, a lot of the rules and stuff like that, you could use any of that and publish your own stuff that you've created using these things. And the SRD. So that went through for 3.0 is when it started, and then it went all the way to 5.0, which is the current one that's out right now. That's not including the one D&D that's out for beta that people are kind of testing right now. So there are a few things that are not in there, kind of like the Beholders, Mind Flayers, Artificers, Tasha's Cauldron book, and things like that. So those things you could not use in your streaming, your YouTubes, and all that stuff, or create content with that without Wizards of the Coast being like, hey, that's ours. But the big stir right now is that something was leaked back in December saying that there is going to be a OGL 1.1, which is coming out for mainly the new D&D thing that's coming out in 2024, the 1 D&D. But there are a few things in there that have ticked some people off in the world of gaming, specifically saying a couple of different things which we're going to go over today. So first off, what is your take on this?
I think the community overreacted a little bit, saying that it's going to affect everyone, whereas it's mostly going to affect businesses. But at the end of the day, they're somewhat right in the sense that it may only affect these businesses, but there's a lot of insidious ways it can still affect businesses. And those businesses are what shapes a lot of current D&D and the ecosystem of being able to find all kinds of minis, cool projects. The number one that everybody's probably thinking about if you're into D&D at all is going to be Critical Role. They're the number ones that are going to be affected. And and the sad thing is, of course, that Matt's a pretty trusting and nice guy, and he definitely gave Wizards of the Coast a lot of his content, his world, a lot of characters.
Class. Artificer.
That's technically Wizards of the Coast's now. So he's kind of been locked out of his own content in a way. Now, they may just let him use it at that point, but it's still got that stink and that stench of like, we technically own it, but we're letting you use it kind of feel. And it has happened a lot in video games. And now this isn't video games, this is tabletop, but the gaming world, this happened in Halo. This Marty O'Donnell, and then second time for Marty O'Donnell, it happened in Destiny. And it has happened recently. We found out a lot more details recently. It happened a while back, but Mick Gordon for Doom. Mick Gordon went through a lot of shit trying to get his money for one. He got paid for about half of his content that they used in game. Not, there's a lot of sound files and stuff that nobody will use. It's just trash. You tried out something, didn't work, move on. But half of the stuff that they have in the game, he didn't get paid for.
Yep.
And there's a lot of toxic environment that has been exposed by one of his recent posts. Good for him. I really liked Mick Gordon. I didn't understand what happened when it all went down. I kind of felt bad, but I didn't know why he was like that, but it turned out Mick wasn't. So, in the same way, feels kind of like that. It's not been enacted yet. It's not like overarching evil.
It feels
overlord.
like if we were not made aware of this, though, it could have gotten to that.
Absolutely, because I feel that this Hasbro Wizard of the Coast is very much like Activision Blizzard. It was a slow burn. It's taken a lot longer for Hasbro. It's taken a lot longer for Hasbro to kind of do some of the stuff that Activision and Blizzard got in trouble for. But I feel it's similar in the sense that the Hasbro has been milking the ever-living crap out of Magic the Gathering. And a lot of people are very upset about that. It's a great game. Yeah, it's a great game. People love it. It's just it is being killed by prices. I actually had somebody that knows a lot about Magic sit down and talk to me about the specifics of why it's an issue. It's one of the main reasons it's the biggest issue is they're reprinting cards. Mm-hmm. Rare decks that are no longer rare now, they're putting them in reprint because they're rare and they can charge higher prices for them. And they print certain cards that are single player and multiplayer only. You can't use them in single player tournaments and stuff unless you have a multiplayer version of the exact same card.
Yeah.
So they're just really milking people for their money.
Didn't you tell me that a starter pack was like $180 or something like that?
Yeah, it's just yet again, this guy I was talking to knows a lot more than I do, but there was a kind of booster pack to get you started on your deck. It still won't get you your whole deck. It just gets you kind of the meat of your army and stuff. $170, I think, $169, I believe. And it's just ridiculous. Like, yeah, sure, there's a bunch of trash cards in there, but there's not a single video game that the base game is that price. And essentially, you're supposed to get that to be able to play that deck. Yeah. Like, because realistically, you can't get, 5 or 6 pack of cards and be able to play a deck in Magic. You will spend a lot more getting a well-built deck if you want to be competitive. If you want to go play, at Saturday and have some fun with friends, you still can't go off a single pack of cards. Literally, there's not enough cards to play. And even if you had enough cards to play, you don't have enough right cards to play.
Yeah.
You need your resource cards.
Are you going to have fun?
Cards. Yeah. So realistically, you're going to spend a lot of money just to play a single deck. And that is deck builder games. They've always been very money hungry and very efficient at that. But it's Hasbro now. We're starting to I think people are kind of getting pissed at Hasbro because Magic was being milked. But I think people are going to start shifting their attention slowly to Hasbro now. It's like, okay, you're kind of doing this to everything that you own. And
You'll have Transformers and My Little Pony and all that stuff. Make your money there. We're just a bunch of nerds. Like, we don't get out of our basements enough to spend the money. Like, what we do have money for, we spend it on your books, your dice.
Taco Bell.
Taco Bell. But, like, at this point, it just feels like we finally figured out, we as in Hasbro, is like, oh, this stuff is starting to like take off. You got Stranger Things, you got Critical Role and all that stuff. Like, everything's starting to really come out that D&D isn't that like in the basement nerds anymore. Like, this could be a lot more money making for us. And so now, like, these content creators, like in particular, we're gonna name off Critical Role a lot because they've truly like started getting this ball rolling back when they started streaming in 2016. Yep. Now, streaming itself is not going to be really affected, but like they've created a lot of stuff. One of the things that we have mentioned is the Artificer. They started on Pathfinder rules and decided that they were going to transform it into D&D rules so that they could easily stream it and people could like understand it better, because Pathfinder is a math game and a lot of math. So they took the Artificer from the Pathfinder and made it into something that they could use in D&D 5th edition, which Percy is the result of that, and it works beautifully. Yep. So, like, they gave it to them, and I believe it was in Tasha's book
Tasha's Cauldron.
Yeah, that where that originally came out in for Artificer and all the different rules, and then there's the Eberron book, I believe, also has some stuff there with Artificer in it, but those in particular books are not under the OGL 1.0. It is the core rules and things of that nature that are in the OGL. So that's one of the questions that we have here on this episode is like, how is that going to be affected? Because they technically made that content. They gave the rights to it to Wizards of the Coast. And now with this new one that's going to be coming out for the OGL, that's probably going to be now under like their lock and key. But Critical Role now makes a lot of money. They have a TV show. They have little minis and stuff like that they sell. They've got the books. They've got all sorts of stuff. And I guarantee you that they're going to make over the amount that new OGL has, and they're going to have to fork out money for it at this point. So, like, that's the big question at hand right now, is how badly is this going to affect people? So in the original OGL, which again was for 3.0 to 5.0, there was something that came out for 4.0. 4.0 is the redheaded stepchild of D&D. Nobody really likes that edition. We know one person who knows it and does it well enough to get others into it, but like it's not big enough for a lot of people to do things with it. So that's just kind of like, it's 3rd edition and 5th that's really affected by this. There is a section of the original OGL that says, it's section number 9, that basically they can make changes to the OGL as much as they want and print them out and everything, but players can use any version of the OGL that they have published over the years. So if that does not fit their description with something that's just come out, if it was in an original like one or any of the past OGLs, then they would be able to use it. The big thing is for the 1.1 or 2.0 that just recently was talked about the last couple of days, there is nothing like that in it saying like previous versions will now be like you could use those if it fit you better. The big thing that's changing is there's the termination policies are really aggressive in it, so they can like terminate you at any given point in time for whatever reason.
Yep, that's what literally I'm reading right here. They got to give it 30 days notice, but yeah, they can just say, hey,
any
stop.
reason, anytime whatsoever. It's like you
got a really
30 days.
North Korea feel there.
Oof. Big
They
oof.
don't have to have a reason. They just say, stop, we don't like what you're doing, and no.
Yeah. And you have 30 days to change this. So yeah, there's that big thing for termination policies where they can just do whatever they want, say whatever they want for any reason, and you've only got 30 days to change your whole take on it.
I think the biggest thing that's upsetting is about that is that there's not some over ruling body to kind of help govern that. Mm-hmm. There's not a Wizards Council, which would be hilarious.
The Wizards Council says that you must change this paragraph.
Yeah, something like that. I understand. It's your business. You want to have complete control of what's happening with your business because there are some people that will try to take advantage of your business. There are people that will also do stupid stuff to your business to make you really kind of regret not dealing with something. But having that amount of control and being that big of a business does not look good.
Yes. So, like, it could be some random dude in an office at Hasbro that reads something that someone posted on there for, like, a $1 on one of those, like, DM groups and stuff like that. And it's like, I think this would be cool. Here it is. I don't like that. You need to change it. And why? Why do you not like this one thing that I put on here? It's like, because I don't. And then they have 30 days to change it. There's no ruling. There's no anything. And they can just say why. Or no, not why. But
one thing to think about is your little dragon tavern thing.
Dragon tavern.
Your little favorite dragon bread.
Oh yeah, Flamecraft.
Kickstarters and all those kind of people that make the money.
Yeah, like Kickstarters.
Yeah,
big
Kickstarters.
thing on Kickstarters.
Yeah, big Kickstarters are going to get hit pretty hard. Not so much Kickstarter themselves, I believe.
No, but like the companies that are using Kickstarters for theirs, a lot of them will go for like, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars for their goal, and a lot of them, as long as it's a good thing, like the Flamecraft board game, a lot of your like third-party books and things like that, Kobold Press and all of that, like little minis, a lot of mini companies, like they use Kickstarter to do that, and they usually get over $1 million.
And that's the kickstart, but then they're still a business, and they still make money and sell new stuff afterwards, so their business model afterwards just starts to crumble.
But it's an average to see that over 750. I can tell you,
there's not one small business that still can be considered a small business over $750,000. It's crazy, but it still can be considered a small business depending on how many people you hire and just your business model. But a small business that just makes over that, say they make $1.5 million.
Well,
that means
to put into concept of what we're saying here, that's something we haven't gone over. You have to report your revenue now in the new OGL. And for any company that makes over $750,000, you now have to give up 25% gross of what you make.
Now, 2 caveats to that. That means that you also have to fill out all that tax paperwork for Wizards of the Coast to see. And second of all, it does mean after the $750,000, everything past that is actually taxed. So let's say somebody made $1.5 million, or let's say $1 million. Technically, they can only tax the $250,000 above the $750,000. But that was my point. What I was going to say a second ago is there's not one small business out there that if say they made $1.5 million, so they have $750,000 that they could be taxable by Wizards of the Coast. There's not one small business out there that could easily sustain a 25% gross off the top amount taken from Wizards of the Coast. Because as business owners in the past, like something like that being taken off like taxes, American taxes, IRS taxes, are not gross. They are post a lot of stuff, post deductions. And as a business, you deduct everything you can. So,
thank God.
Yeah. So that is even the American taxes, which are considered the worst, everybody hates. This is so much worse because taxes are about 30%-ish for a business. This is almost 30%, but no way to deduct money off this. So that means even if you lost money that first year of business, say it's your first year of business, you're probably going to lose, that you still have to come up with that 25% off the top of what you made above $750,000. So that's what people are calling monopolistic, to say that they are targeting smaller businesses. They are not targeting big businesses. So let's say Heroes Forge. I would bet, I don't know, but I would bet Heroes Forge would be considered above a small business at this point. They're a pretty big mainstay. Everybody knows what they are.
I guarantee you they're not as big as like Cobalt Press.
No, but that will say Cobalt Press then. That would be another good one to talk about. Like, they are going to be smart enough and they have enough lawyers, enough money to be able to say.
I don't want to like make a lot of noise and then.
What?
Okay.
But they have enough money and enough lawyers to reconfigure what they make and the naming schemes and ways to get around stuff like that to make sure they can still continue on. But small businesses that their entire business has been made on making D&D minis or
for decades.
Whatever it may be, they can't just transition instantly to something else, because it's not just because they can't do the tooling and stuff to change that. It's because they can't get the new set of customers they need to continue the same business they had. So they are absolutely targeting smaller businesses because, believe it or not, $750,000 as a business is not a lot of money, because even for what we had, a bakery, our throughput could be, it's a small bakery too, $5,000 per month of output cost, and we barely made that much, maybe sometimes more, and that's just a tiny little business, a hole in the wall. That's not counting like if it becomes something slightly bigger, that amount of money starts going way up. And that's not a food business either. Non-food businesses can make a lot more money. So
very much so. We have a lot of output when it comes to product that you have to buy to make said products, to whereas, you know, the Cobalt Press and all that stuff for the mini makers and stuff, you make the resin or you get the 3D, like the other version.
But guess what? That's expenses. You can cut that out of your taxes.
Well, yeah. So, like, I mean, like, we could do that too for some of our stuff.
But we could never cut out our waste.
No, well, exactly. But, like, either way, like, as far as this goes, I really don't think that there's not a lot of big companies out there for D&D. I feel like a lot of them are very small because it's a very niche thing.
That's the trick. That is the trick, too. Because there aren't these, like, mega companies. Like, I think Hasbro and Wizard of the Coast and the conglomerate are the biggest. when it comes to tabletop gaming companies. So they're the top. They're trying to keep everyone below, because that's the idea of a monopoly. You do have control over a lot of the stuff that goes on at the top. So anything you do below you can start being seen as monopolistic practices.
Yeah.
So people are like, $750,000 is a lot of money. Not when it comes to making a business that's going to be just nationally based. You spend a lot more money than you think as a business just to keep afloat.
Yes.
So yeah, that $750,000 sounds like a lot, but I bet you somebody like a Mini Maker or Cobalt Press or whoever it's going to be, the people that own that company don't take home even probably 5%, if maybe even 2%, if that, of the money.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're making a lot of money for everybody.
But this will affect all of them. So, like, if you've never heard of Cobalt Press, I'm sure if you watch us and you like D&D, you're going to know it. But I picked this out in particular because this is one of their books that they do from Cobalt Press. It's Creature Codex. So they make a lot of these types of books to where it has, like, a lot of ideas for monsters that you can use. One of them in our homebrew D&D group that we do, there is a city of Dragonborn. And I didn't want just all Dragonborn. Like, not, I wanted to have some cool, unique ones. There is a section in here that has a bunch of different type of Dragonborns and stats for them and everything, so I didn't have to do any work whatsoever. I had it all right here. Now, for Cobalt Press, if I guarantee you they make over $750K a year. And if they continue down this path, if this does go through for the OGL, then they are going to have to, like, they're going to have to tell Wizards of the Coast exactly how much they make. They're very strict on their reporting and things like that according to this new OGL. So they are going to have to report to them how much they make on Dungeons and Dragons content, and anything that's over that $750K, 25% right off the bat. And if for gross income, you're basically saying 50% at this point.
Yeah, because that's like, if you think about what you're actually making at the end of the day after deductions and stuff like that, it's a much harder hit than 25% because it's gross.
With
gross. But yes, it's gross income.
Yes. So you're talking about, you might as well just say, like, if you made $30 off of this, like, they're going to take $15 off of this by the end of this whole thing. Like, realistically, no, they're going to, like...
They're taking 25%, but they're taking 50% of your profit.
Yes.
Because a lot of times you're going to factor in your costs and stuff, but then your profit, they're taking off 25% of that, which that's leaving you with half of what you already had before.
Yeah.
But no, one of the worst things, I think, so far, that's a business practice that I hate, monopolistic practices like that, trying to keep other people below them. But one of the things I absolutely hate more than anything else, especially with our last video we just did, the AI art, the thing I was talking about, keep on trucking humans, we're going to have our place in the world for a long time, make art, make cool stuff, make cool shit. And this is what kills me the most. Regardless of how much revenue the creator earns, I'm just reading off on this part right here, this is just an explanation of each section of it. Regardless how much revenue the creator earns, they have to register their content with Wizards of the Coast, no matter how much money, and provide the company with a copy of what you're wanting to make. It also grants Wizards a sweeping, non-exclusive, perpetual, irrevocable, worldwide sub-licensable, royalty-free license to use that content for any purpose. Right after non-exclusive all the way to any purpose was an actual direct quote from there, meaning if you just sell a book to like 100 books just for fun. He's like, yeah, that's cool. I published something. I made a book, whatever. Wizard of the Coast can at that point, or even if you just made a cool idea, you're Carrie. They could at any point just say, you know what, I like Carrie. That's mine. And you can never touch that Carrie again because it's theirs.
While it would be cool to see my characters in a campaign, if I can't control them, that would be very upsetting.
Yep. They could make him whatever they wanted.
If they wanted
she could
to,
be a boring paladin at that point instead of
I would riot on the steps of Hasbro, be like, she ain't no friggin' paladin. Yep. Excuse you.
But that's the point. That it is crushing creativity. I would never, ever think about making any content that is important to me or special to me, because that's what it. Anybody that makes stuff at this level, it's a small hey, I've got a couple friends, we talk about a cool subject, we're going to make a world. Neat. Like right now, your world that you're making, your homebrew, you're supposed to register that and tell Wizards of the Coast about that. Because it has D&D themes, it's based upon the universe of D&D, even if it's not the world of D&D, you could lose that. So,
pry it from my cold, dead hands.
yes. We're going to use some different verbiage. We're going to go through and comb some things to make sure that that doesn't happen. But so many homebrews, so many characters, so many classes, so many enemies, there's so many things that could technically fall under the license of D&D if you're not careful, that it will be crushing creativity. Because that's the biggest part about D&D. It was an open game to let you do whatever you want, homebrew stuff.
That's why it got popular. Was you could make your characters, and you could be a person or a thing that you could never be in real life, and just act out however that character would be. If you are a creative person and you have no other way to get that out of your system, like if you can't draw, if you can't write stories and all that stuff, if you play D&D and you're pretty good at acting, you could be that character. Like cosplayers, when they dress up as their favorite characters, they use that character and they act like them. This is exactly what it is for D&D. So it's just another way to get out that creativity. And at this point, Hasbro has basically put their thumb down and said, well, yeah, you can keep creating that content. But if it's good enough that it can make us money, we're going to take it. And we're going to use it for ourselves. And you're not going to get a dime from that because we can.
A lot of people are also saying it's because of Wizard of the Coast, this whole overarching thing. They bought out D&D Beyond in April.
Yes, they did.
And the idea is instead of having to buy out companies, we can just take them over because it's our,
I
content.
thought it would be a good thing to have D&D Beyond have something, because before with D&D Beyond, you'd have to buy every single book that you had. If you already had a physical copy of a book, then you would have to buy it digitally on there to be able to use any of the content that was in there. So for a couple of things on my end for my campaign, I needed to buy either separately, like a $2 or a $1 thing to be able to get a particular, like the Artificer. You have to buy all that stuff digitally to be able to use that for a character in D&D Beyond. So once they were bought out, I was hoping that any new books that came out from that point, you would get like a digital, even if it was like a $10, $20 more for that version of the book, it would come with a digital copy code that you could just get it on there. Something like that to come from this change. When in reality, I've gotten more dice, digital dice to roll. I've gotten a bunch of newsletters, and now I'm getting this saying that the OGL is going to be changing and stuff like that, and then the 1D&D stuff, and there's going to be a virtual player, which is really cool. But I guarantee you somebody out there who would be using the OGL facts and stuff to make their content could do just as good, if not better, job at making a virtual tabletop, which I know people who have made virtual tabletops, Roll20, Owlbear, and all those, they can do just as good.
Roll20 did release a statement saying they are working with D&D and they will plan on not changing any of their business models, so they're still going to be around. But
unlike Cobalt Press, who has started a new project they call the Black Flag Project, Mutiny.
But at the same time, even though Roll20 says we're good, you can tell that D&D is trying to replace them. D&D 1 or 1D&D is going to have a fully interactive. They're trying to make a fully interactable play space, just like all the other ones.
Well, I said the virtual one and stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, that's fantastic. If it's coming from the company themselves, you're probably going to have a lot of options and things for it.
You're going to have less options than Roll20 no matter what you do.
Well,
it's probably going to be easier to use.
There's also exactly, it's a huge learning curve for Roll20.
Yep.
But at what cost is the point, though? Because...
At what cost?
Well, I mean, honestly, at this point, if they're going to be that strict, they finally realize, we can make some money off of this, they're going to become much more strict. And I get it as a business model. You have content that you could get paid for, but...
No. Tell me how much money Wizards of the Coast could have probably made if this law had already been in effect last year and suddenly they're like, oh, surprise, we take all the money all of a sudden. How much money do you think they would have made?
A lot. To a company like that, probably not a lot.
They made $1.3 billion last year.
As Hasbro, are we talking like for Hasbro?
Conglomerate.
Yeah, but again, Hasbro has their hands in a lot of things. A lot of toys, too.
Does not matter. They make more money than most companies in the world. Like, they're not a Fortune 500, but they're getting close to being on like the top 1,000 list because of that revenue.
They also have My Little Pony. They have Transformers.
What does it cost them nowadays? They print the same shit over and over and over. They don't have retooling costs. They don't have advertising costs. I know, that's what I'm saying. They make that much money, but as far as I'm concerned, let me double check the money amount. Most of their income is... okay, here we go. Let's see. No, Wizards of the Coast made $1.3 billion. Specifically. That segment.
And that's probably a lot of it being from like D&D Beyond and like all their books and stuff.
Well, yeah, their whole universe, everything they have is just makes a lot of money. But they made $1.3 billion as just Wizard of the Coast, just D&D. So,
Magic, The Gathering.
My question though is the amount of money they would make. Somebody guesstimated. I have no idea how accurate this is at all. But somebody guesstimated that it would probably have been under $100 million they could have possibly, at the best case scenario, garnered from people. So that's not even, that would be so that'd be like 7% of their income.
Yeah, but instead of 1.2 billion, it's 1.3.
No, it's instead of 1.3, it's now 1.4 billion.
Oh,
but
no, I didn't remember the exact pointage.
But the problem is, you pissed off your entire community. You've made other companies completely change direction and not want to work with you anymore.
You've had a lot of people cancel their D&D Beyond content, which is really what got this ball rolling.
Yep. So that's the problem. There's got to be a weight and balance in every decision for business. And in this case, it's a community-facing game, meaning like if it's a restaurant, you still have to deal with your tenants, but you're still going to have different kind of tenants than if you have intellectual property. Intellectual property is a whole different ball game of like emotionally attached people. So if you start messing with that, it's like a bank. You start messing with people's money or somebody's emotionally created content or intellectually created content. No, you're going to have a lot of problems because people are going to get very pissed off very quickly at you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people, like, apparently, if you completely cancel your D&D Beyond account, like, never to be seen again, not in their, data banks or anything like that, there is a ticket that you have to fill out at the very end saying, like, why you're not staying, like, why you're leaving and all that stuff. And a lot of people entered in the information for that, and the stats were that it was in the 5 digits as to how many tickets they had at the end of one day after that leaked for the 1.1 OGL. So it went into the 5 digits of how many people who filled out the forms. That's not saying how many people just canceled it and said don't need a reason and it didn't go to them. So
I would say a pretty high percentage would be wanting to fill that out because they're like, I'm pissed off and here's why. But yes.
Not necessarily. Like, I quietly exited out of Overwatch.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't write anything else out there. But, I can tell you why verbally because it's much quicker. But if you ask me to write it down, like, oh, well, why are you deleting Battle.net? Because I'm never going to play anything on it anymore. Like, there's no reason for me to.
I think versus Overwatch, though, not a moral company stance, but the game itself stance, it was a much slower burn. Stuff started getting slowly worse and worse as time went on, more than this.
I said I wasn't going to buy Overwatch 2 because of all the bad stuff they were doing there. And then when it did come out, I waited a couple weeks for the stats and everything, and then I got into the game and realized it's no longer fun.
Right.
So that came after the fact. But either way, there's a lot of people that are not going to take the time to do that stuff. So it could have been well over 5 digits, maybe 6, going into 100,000 plus. So, 5 digits, it could be 99,999 people.
And at the same time, if you think about what's the subscription cost?
Depending on your size,
It's the cheapest.
I don't remember. 20?
Is
maybe.
it $20?
I know one is $50, and I think that might be the DM one. Or GM. Well, I guess it could be DN now.
I thought it was like 15 or something. Whatever it is. We'll just say like $20. 20 times, let's just say 50,000. It's right in the middle. 20 times 50,000? That's starting to get to the beginnings of like what you might have made with this new agreement anyways.
Yeah.
And now you're going to have, that's just one day too.
Yeah.
Over the course, by the time news finally hits certain people that aren't in the know of everything, things starts to take off. And especially if something happens to Critical Role and it comes out that, yeah, my content's gone or something like that. Oh my God, there's going to be a lot of pissed off people. Because Critical Role has single-handedly, I think, built up this as much, if not even more than Stranger Things did. Because I think Stranger Things started people thinking like, oh my God, D&D, I forgot about that.
Well,
or
Stranger
that's
Things
a new cool
was a
thing.
whole different story to
Yeah.
it. D&D had some moments in it. Critical Role is D&D.
Yep, because
playing that.
I think it gave so many people that were interested after Stranger Things came out, all the seasons so far, that it gave them a place to land. It said it was a chance for them to say, oh my goodness, there's a ton of content I can get through. It's going to take me weeks to get through all this or longer. And so they had a lot of content to chew through. They had a lot of fun stuff. It was clean. And that would made it to where almost all ages could kind of join in. But
Not the third season, though.
not third season.
Third season, there's
still
a
had-
lot of F words.
They still had some few curse words and
Phew.
some things, but it was just not really it would have been periodically PG-13 a couple times, but the rest of it was PG.
Right, but Talison's new character in the
Yes.
third season, he says the F word a lot in it. I mean, I haven't gotten a chance to really watch the third season a lot with, making this and all of that stuff. But I've seen the first, 10 episodes, and I mean, he uses that F word like it's candy. Like the rock candy on his head. Anyway, but, the sad thing is even if it's not going to affect us small peeps, like our channel, there's a whole new, different one for fan-based content, like streaming and YouTube's things. So, we can talk about this stuff all day long and not get hit with anything on this. But as soon as we start saying, hey, we're going to do an episode on building the map to our homebrew content and stuff like that, that's when it gets into we could do that.
You're probably going to need to pull down anything that ever had to do with your homebrew. Because you're not going to report that to Wizards of the Coast.
I didn't make any money on it.
No, it literally says you don't have to make money on it. They can take your content, your intellectual property.
Come at me. If you find it, come at me. So
yeah, since you're not reporting this, we don't have a homebrew. What are you talking about?
well, either way, I mean, we talk about it on here, so it doesn't matter. But
What homebrew?
What carry? What veil? No. So in the long run, small people like us, the content creators, minus people like Critical Role who have gotten their hands into the products and different things that they've created, a lot of us small people are not going to be affected. Now, there was a video that I was watching to get a little bit of information, different opinions that other people around here have had. Dragon Dudes, I think was their names. I'm so sorry if I botched that. But they were saying that their stuff is not going to change because all they do is they sit there and they discuss this stuff. But that's part of the fan-based content contract that you have or the license that they have. But there are a couple of episodes where they are building a castle or they have a homebrew type thing that they have used. They have put those on the back burner because they have no idea what that means for their content because they don't want to use it and then have it pulled out from under them. So that is the only thing that I see for the smaller people that is going to be affected. But absolutely the bigger people
Because
Cobalt Press.
that's unfortunately the most valuable thing to small content creators that don't have the money yet to back that up is their intellectual property. I can't even talk. Intellectual property.
Intellectual.
That is their baby. That is what you've made and what you've dreamt up, what you've always wanted to make,
Well,
and then
even those companies on
most
Kickstarters, the ones I really thought were cool, instead of having the 3D models of your characters, there's a lot of them that have the 2D ones where it's in full color. They have it to where you can put them on a mount and they're detached or attached to mounts and things like that. There's people that make castles and buildings and stuff like that that's very easily put together, and you can put that and have like 3D, like the ships and stuff that we saw at Gen Con. Like, people created those, and 3D printers are making that so much easier to make. For those people, though, they won't be able to sell that content because technically, like, oh, well, we want you to be able to do Strahd's, the 3D movable, like the videos that we used when we played Curse of Strahd, just for funsies. Like, those types of things are not in the OGL. So those people that make those moving, like, that you can play on a TV or a screen on your tables, done. You can't get those anymore because of this type of stuff. So it really does start to affect those people. But the way we talked about it beforehand was like even the bigger things. So like we keep going to Cobalt Press just because it's so much easier to get to them. But like if they have to now give 25% of their content or their money from their content to WotC, then, or Wizards of the Coast, if you don't know what that stands for, if they have to do that at this point, then they more than likely will not be able to afford, we'll say like 2 people that work there, or more, because that's going to be a lot more than 2 people. We'll say a whole team, like that maybe they were working on a new book, or they were the ones that created these books to give you those extra characters. They no longer have the money to have those people, therefore they no longer have the content to sell.
No, what Cobalt Press, that's why they're changing gears. They can't. The business themselves could not survive.
Yes, but that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Is saying, like, say the whole team now is let go because they no longer can afford with how much money they make that's going to Wizards of the Coast. Now, that's not as much content going to stores. So, like, Heroes is a local comic book shop that has a whole section for D&D, Magic the Gathering, like, and then the rest of it's all, like, comic books. They wouldn't have as much to sell because a company basically has gone under or can't put out as much stuff, so then they don't get as much things on the shelves. And we can tell you right now, Heroes is the location, and they thrive on their minis. Like, they have a whole wall full of minis, and they have, like, extra little things in the middle. If you hit them at the wrong time, you are not going to get a mini because they're constantly sold out. So those companies that make those things will not be able to push out the amount of content anymore. Therefore, they're not going to have as much on their shelves. They're not going to make as much money as they're used to, and they might go under. So it goes and trickles down all the way to the little people here in your local stores because they don't have all the content to sell at this point. But, like you were saying, a lot of those people, again, like Cobalt Press in particular that I was reading into because I love their books, have started a new campaign saying that it's going to be a core fantasy setting. They don't have specifics for it or anything right now. All they have is the project name, which is Project Black Flag. And that's supposed to stand for the mutiny that is happening against Wizards of the Coast and like a unity of people. And people are like, I am all for this hashtag Black Flag project all the way. Like,
well, because like D&D, you don't own, or Wizards of the Coast, you don't own elves. You don't own orcs.
Where did you get your content?
Tolkien.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of it. I mean, the parts of it where the Celtic mythology,
true,
Norse
but
mythology.
Their basis for everything is basically how Tolkien used his in Lord of the Rings.
Some of it, yeah. The magic, no. But the characters, like the races, mostly, yes. But, yeah, that you don't own this content. And I don't think necessarily anyone should own it, but at this point, at the moment, if you're going to be like this, I guess Tolkien should be kind of like the last, well, Tolkien's estate should be kind of the one that still originally created a lot of this content. Like I said, there were always a lot of characters, especially in Celtic mythology, Norse mythology, and Britannica mythology, like that whole area that Tolkien wrote his stuff off of. I mean, dwarves were first, as far as I remember, in Norse mythology, well before Tolkien. But that's why Tolkien made his world, to preserve a lot of European mythology. So he actually admitted that. But at this moment, if you're going to be like this, you don't know that stuff. So yeah, sure, you've been creating a lot of content for the world setting, the magic system, the class system, the mechanics of the game.
The stats.
Yes. I think, unfortunately, your stories are kind of crap, but that's why there's so much homebrew. But I think that's about all you own, is the mechanics of the game and how to play the game. So we'll see how it goes for the next year. I think the next month we'll see if anything changes. I bet you Wizards of the Coast has kind of retracted this for now. They're like, we need to rewrite this and rethink this. So it's going to be a while.
That was something I completely forgot about. I'm glad you went there. So they did retract it. They put out a statement, but basically what that statement said to people was, y'all are being a little bitches. We're going to pull it for now, but it's still coming. Was the gist of their little thing that they put out. So kudos to you all for pushing a lot of people back. My thing is, the movie is supposed to come out here soon, in the next couple of months. How is that going to affect the stats of the movie? Because I want to see the movie, but I don't want to see it because it's a Wizards of the Coast thing, or like the story of Wizards of the Coast. I want to see it to see the content that I know and love put into movie. Like the gelatinous cube. There's a guy that posted a picture of one of the settings that you have up in the movie theaters, like the posters and whatnot, the cardboard cutouts, where you can stand behind some of the characters and it looks like you're inside of a gelatinous cube. So like that's really cool. You've got a lot of that stuff. If you have the Red Wizards of Thay in there, like the main bad guy looks like they're a part of and everything. You have done things in your campaigns with these characters. But you're not going for the Red Wizards of Thay. You're going because your character.
I don't think that Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, that conglomerate will benefit a ton from that movie. I feel that a lot of times companies like that will say, hey, you can use our intellectual content to create a movie to a angel investor somewhere in Hollywood. But Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast won't most likely benefit hardly at all.
I think you are 100% wrong. Because what does Hasbro make?
Toys.
Lots and lots of toys.
Well, that's why I'm saying directly. So no matter if you go see this movie or not, you're not going to affect the pay of Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast because that's not going to make you go out and buy some more toys. Just the existence of the movie will increase the sales of toys and so forth from the company. You can't control that.
Or content.
Yeah. But you can't control that, unfortunately. It's going to be out of your hands. But the seeing of the movie directly, I don't think will make any impact on their sales.
But if you don't go see the movie, and you're definitely not going to support the company and the toys and the content that they come out with. So I think it will greatly affect them. If you boycott the movie because of what it stands for.
If you boycott, that's different. If you just decide to not go show up or whatever, yeah, you might help kind of be one of the numbers.
But what is boycotting?
Boycotting's not doing it with a voice. That's the difference. Saying why you're not doing it. That's a big difference about protest versus just not showing up. There's a huge difference between the two. You're protesting or boycotting, that needs to be done with some kind of voice, as on social media or something to saying,
well, yeah, you say, I'm not going to see this movie.
Yeah, I couldn't wait. I wanted to see it so bad, but this is the reason I'm not doing it. Hasbro.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people are going to do that. They've already made their voice with D&D Beyond and canceling their subscriptions and their accounts. So I feel like they're also going to do this with the movie. It's like, I really wanted to see that movie. But, like, I'm probably still going to see that movie because of what it means to me. Because it looks like, and we've said that in one of our other episodes, that it looks like they're going to be doing, like, their first 5th edition movie in some way, shape, or form. Like, the Red Wizards of Thay are going to be in there and all that stuff. And I really feel like they're going to try and do the 5th edition book content because that's what a lot of people got into and how this really got started to be how big it is. So I really do feel like they're going to be doing something Hoard of the Dragon Queen-ish. Reasons down below in our video that we talked about this. I'll post the link to that one down there. But, like, if that's the case, like, I want to go see it because of when we played through
Just go
House
pirate
of the Dragon
it.
Queen. Well, yes, you can do that. I'm not telling you all to do that on here. You shouldn't either.
I didn't say it to tell anybody to do it except you.
And I'm not gonna. So, but I mean, like, just things like that. Things are going... things are going to affect this, and it's going to be not fun, but it's going to be interesting to see how this goes down in the next couple of months, if not sooner, depending on how they go with this, because they finally got the message when people started canceling their D&D Beyond, and their answer was fuck you, basically. It's still coming out, we just don't know when. We're going to revise it, but it looked like they came out with a 2.0 version here in the last couple of days, and none of the stuff that was affected people, like affecting them, changed. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes down in the next couple of weeks. Any final closing arguments?
Arguments? No, I just think it's...
Any final closing thoughts?
Thoughts, I would say, real shooting your own foot kind of thing. I really don't know why they were doing it. I'm guessing it's because they're preparing for the future. They think D&D is going to get bigger and better, and I think that's why they're trying to do this D&D 1. They're starting to apply the same methods that they're using on Magic because it's still working. People are still buying stuff, but they're applying the same ideas to D&D, as in trying to make sure there's no other company you can go to except Wizards of the Coast for their content, their minis, their user interfaces, their books, their stories, everything. So that way they can control pricing, because you cannot control pricing. You can adjust pricing, but you cannot control pricing in an open market. But because they want to also control how they're going to make their money practices, I think that subscriptions are going to be a big thing still, like with D&D Beyond, but it's going to be necessary because I don't think we're going to actually own books very soon. I think they're going to start taking books away, just like Photoshop. You'll never own Photoshop for the rest of your life now. I mean, you may have had a perpetual license previously, but it won't be updated. And they're going to make sure you want to update eventually, but you have to buy a subscription model based now. So you don't own anything. And I think that's what they're trying to go to, is a subscription based, you have to go through us, and you don't own it kind of message. Yeah. So we'll see, but there's a really cool clip that Linus Tech Tips, funny enough, guy's not really big into tabletop gaming, but he's got friends and people he knows that is. And he was passionate about how stupid this is because he's a very good businessman. He has several businesses, but he talks about it and says that you are shooting yourself in the foot. Like, there's no reason to be doing this, and he knows exactly why they're doing it, but it's going to come back to bite them. Why they're doing it, I think it was for the future, but I think it's just people aren't going to buy it. Mm-hmm. But he said there are so many other desktop or tabletop games that you can play in the world. Big ones, small ones, all kinds of stuff. And there's plenty of content you can't touch. So if they continue on with this kind of methodology, they're going to go with their requirements to play D&D and your content is ours type thing. I'm not playing D&D anymore. There are so many other places that can use my time than a company like that.
I've always wanted to learn Starfinder. And I will.
Yep.
Your move, Hasbro. WotC specifically. If you want to take this content away from people who've wanted a safe place to play, you have now made it unsafe for them. So
you can say it's inclusive or good in so many ways if you want, but when you have practices like that, that's what scares people, drives them away, and makes them hate you. So, unfortunately, you should have left it like it was.
Because if I can't get my content like this stuff anymore for people that make their little third-party stuff, it's not fun anymore. So I guess we'll see you next time. On the next episode of Nerding Out, whatever that may be about. Hopefully it'll be an update to this and it's a good one, but we won't know. So
hopefully it's just something else entirely, because this would be more fun than this.
That's true. This is a sad one. I've been looking up this information for the last few days, and the more and more I saw it, the more it looked like a Activision Blizzard situation, and I'm tired of all my favorite places betraying me. So hopefully you all figure out what you want to do. Bye, y'all.